What if I told you that the most iconic structure in human history was built on the bones of the people who constructed it? What if the wall that stretches over 13,000 miles across mountains, deserts, and valleys was never actually one wall at all? And what if the real story of how it was built is far darker, far more brutal, and far more extraordinary than anything you learned in school? This is the Great Wall of China, and today, for the first time, we're going to watch it being built. Picture this. It is 221 BC. A man named Qin Shi Huang has just done something no one in Chinese history has ever done before. He has unified 7 warring kingdoms under a single empire. He is China's first emperor, and he is already planning his greatest project. He looks north. Beyond the borders of his new empire lie the Xiongnu, nomadic warriors who raid Chinese settlements with terrifying speed and brutality. They come on horseback, they strike without warning, and they disappear back into the steppe before any army can respond. Qin Shi Huang makes a decision that will echo through 3,000 years of history. He will build a wall. Not just any wall, a wall so massive, so ambitious, so utterly unprecedented that it will define an entire civilization. But here's the question nobody asks. How did they actually do it? To understand the construction of the Great Wall, you first need to understand one brutal fact. There were no machines, no cranes, no trucks, no modern engineering equipment of any kind. Every single stone, every brick, every bucket of earth was moved by human hands. And Qin Shi Huang needed a lot of human hands. At the peak of construction during the Qin Dynasty, historians estimate that up to 300,000 workers were conscripted to build the wall. Soldiers, peasants, criminals, political prisoners, men who had no choice but to pick up a tool and walk toward the northern frontier. Many of them would never come home. Imagine being one of those workers. You are a farmer from a village in central China. You have never traveled more than 20 miles from where you were born. And now, overnight, you have been ordered to march hundreds of miles north to build an emperor's dream. The journey alone could take months, and when you arrived, the real suffering began. The wall that Qin Shi Huang built was nothing like the wall we see today. There was no gray stone, no elegant watchtowers rising above mountain ridges, no dramatic crenellations cutting against a blue sky. The first Great Wall was built from rammed earth. Workers dug trenches. They filled wooden frames with layers of earth, gravel, and organic material, including, according to some accounts, the bones of workers who died on site. They pounded each layer down with heavy wooden rammers until it compressed into something almost as hard as stone. The result was a wall that could reach 5 meters in height and stretched across thousands of miles of brutal northern terrain. Across the Gobi Desert, over mountain ranges so steep that workers had to haul materials up by rope, through valleys where temperatures dropped to -30 degrees in winter. And they built it, with their hands, in some of the most inhospitable terrain on Earth. The human cost was catastrophic. Estimates suggest that hundreds of thousands of workers died during the construction of the Qin Wall alone. Disease, starvation, exhaustion, accidents, violence. An ancient Chinese poem captures the grief of the era. Wives waiting at home for husbands who would never return, families torn apart by imperial decree. The wall became known in Chinese folklore as the longest cemetery on Earth. Here's something that will completely change how you see the Great Wall. The wall that tourists visit today, the iconic stone structure winding dramatically over mountain peaks near Beijing, was not built by Qin Shi Huang. It was built 1,500 years later by the Ming Dynasty between 1368 and 1644 AD. The Ming emperors took the crumbling remains of earlier walls and rebuilt them entirely, this time using fired brick and granite stone. They added the watchtowers, the signal beacons, the garrison forts, everything that makes the Great Wall look the way it does in every photograph you have ever seen. What Qin Shi Huang built is almost entirely gone, dissolved back into the earth from which it came. So let us move forward to the Ming Dynasty, because this is where the construction story becomes truly extraordinary. It's the late 1300s. The Mongols have just been driven out of China after nearly a century of occupation. The new Ming emperors are terrified of a Mongol return, and so they begin the most ambitious construction project in Chinese history. They will rebuild the wall. Bigger, stronger, more permanent than anything that came before. The scale of the Ming construction effort is almost impossible to comprehend. At peak construction periods, over 1 million workers were deployed along the wall simultaneously. The wall they built stretches over 8,000 kilometers. It contains an estimated 360 million cubic meters of material. If you took all of that material and used it to build a wall 1 meter wide and 5 meters tall, it would circle the entire Earth more than 30 times. The Ming Wall was not just a defensive barrier, it was a complete military system. Every few hundred meters, a watchtower, two-story structures built from solid brick with arrow slits on every side, signal beacons on the highest points capable of sending military messages across the entire length of the wall within hours using smoke by day and fire by night. Inside the wall itself, hidden staircases, storage rooms for weapons and food, drainage systems to prevent rainwater from weakening the structure. The Ming engineers thought of everything. But behind every stone, there was a human being. The workers of the Ming Dynasty came from every corner of China. Soldiers were permanently stationed at the wall, sometimes for their entire adult lives. Craftsmen were brought in to fire the bricks, cut the stone, and mix the mortar. And the mortar itself deserves a moment. Ming Dynasty engineers developed one of the most sophisticated building materials of the ancient world. They mixed standard lime mortar with glutinous rice soup, creating a compound so strong that modern structural tests have found it harder than the bricks it holds together. Weeds grow through modern concrete. They cannot grow through Ming Dynasty mortar. Workers who died on site were sometimes buried within the wall itself, their remains becoming literally part of the structure they had given their lives to build. When sections of the wall have been excavated by archaeologists, human bones have been found inside. The wall didn't just cost money and time, it cost lives, millions of them, across more than 2,000 years of construction, expansion, and repair. And did it work? The answer is complicated. The wall was never truly impenetrable. Mongol and Manchu forces breached it multiple times throughout history, sometimes through military force, sometimes through bribery of the gate guards, and sometimes simply by finding sections that had fallen into disrepair. But the wall was never purely a military barrier. It was also a customs checkpoint, a trade corridor, a symbol of imperial power so overwhelming that it shaped the psychological identity of an entire civilization. When foreign ambassadors approached China from the north, the first thing they saw was the wall rising above the mountains. Before they ever met the emperor, before they ever saw a Chinese city, the message was unmistakable. We built this. Imagine what else we're capable of. Today, the Great Wall of China stretches across 15 Chinese regions. It passes through deserts, grasslands, mountains, and plateaus. It's the longest man-made structure in human history. And yet, less than 30% of it survives in good condition. Centuries of neglect, erosion, and in some cases deliberate dismantling by local farmers who use the bricks to build their own homes have reduced much of the wall to little more than earthen mounds barely visible above the landscape. The sections near Beijing that draw millions of tourists every year represent only a tiny fraction of what once existed. What has been lost is almost incomprehensible. But what remains, even in ruins, is a testament to something profound about human beings. Our capacity for both extraordinary ambition and extraordinary cruelty. The same project that produced one of the greatest architectural achievements in history also produced some of the greatest human suffering. The workers who died building this wall had no choice. They didn't volunteer, they weren't celebrated, many weren't even remembered. And yet, their work endures. 3,000 years later, their wall still stands, still winds over mountain peaks and across desert plains,
still catches the morning light in a way that makes every person who sees it stop and stare. The Great Wall of China was not built by an emperor. It was built by the hands of millions of ordinary people who had no idea they were creating something that would outlast every dynasty, every empire, and every civilization that came after them. That's the real story of the Great Wall. And now, you know it. If this brought the Great Wall back to life for you, hit subscribe, because next week, we're going back even further.